My name is Amelia Hart. I'm 38 years old, and 3 weeks ago I was engaged to a man I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. His name was Derek Collins. We had been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months, and scheduled to marry in June. The venue had been booked. The deposits had been paid. The invitations were sitting in cream-colored boxes inside my home office, each one embossed with our initials in gold. A, H, and D, C. I used to trace those letters with my thumb and imagine them engraved on anniversary gifts 20 years from now. I thought we were building something permanent. 2 Thursdays ago, Derek came home shortly after 6 in the evening. I was at the kitchen table finishing a report for work when he dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. The sound was unusually sharp. He didn't kiss me hello. Instead, he stood in the kitchen doorway with his jacket still on, watching me, as though he were trying to calculate how much damage his next sentence might cause. "I need to talk to you about something," he said. I closed my laptop. "What happened?" "Nothing happened." His answer came too quickly. He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. There was nervousness in his face, but something harder beneath it. Defiance. The expression of someone who had already made his decision and considered the conversation a formality. "You know how I've been reconnecting with some old friends lately?" I nodded slowly. Derek had spent more time on his phone during the past 2 months. He carried it from room to room even when he showered. Whenever I entered unexpectedly, his screen seemed to go dark beneath his thumb. I had noticed. I had simply chosen not to turn noticing into suspicion. "Well," he continued, "I've been talking to Serena." The name landed between us, like a glass falling from a shelf. Serena Blake was his ex-girlfriend from college. They had dated for 3 years before she moved to London for work. Their breakup had happened 7 years earlier, long before Derek and I met. He had spoken about her only a handful of times, always casually. Serena loved that restaurant. Serena once got us lost in Montreal. Serena hated rainy weather. Tiny memories dropped into conversations as if they meant nothing. "Okay," I said carefully. "She's been going through a difficult time. Her divorce was finalized a few months ago, and she's having problems at work. We started talking, and she invited me to visit her. In London, I studied him, waiting for the part that would make the sentence reasonable. It never came. She wants to show me around Europe," he added. "London, Paris, Amsterdam, Barcelona. Just for a couple of weeks." For several seconds, I could hear only the refrigerator humming behind him. "You want to spend 2 weeks traveling through Europe with your ex-girlfriend? It isn't like that." "Then tell me what it is like." "She needs support. We were important to each other once, Amelia. She's going through a divorce, and she doesn't have many people she can trust." "And you're the person she trusts." "Yes. You're engaged." His jaw tightened. "Which is exactly why you should trust me." The way he said it made trust sound like an obligation I had failed to fulfill, rather than something he was actively destroying. I folded my hands on the table. "Did she invite both of us?" He looked away for half a second. "No." "Did you ask whether I could come?" "That would defeat the purpose." "What purpose?" He exhaled sharply. "I knew you were going to react like this. Like what? Confused that my fiancé wants to take a romantic tour of Europe with the woman he dated for 3 years. It's not romantic. Then why can't I come?" "Because Serena needs someone familiar. She wouldn't be comfortable opening up with you there." I almost laughed, but the sound stayed trapped in my chest. "When are you supposedly leaving?" "Saturday." I stared at him. "This Saturday?" "Yes." "As in 2 days from now?" "My flight is at 2. The cold feeling that passed through me wasn't heartbreak yet. It was recognition. "You already bought the ticket." He didn't answer. "You already planned the trip, booked the flight, arranged time away from work, and discussed all of this with Serena before saying a word to me." "I'm telling you now." "No, Derek. You're informing me." His chair scraped backward slightly. "I'm not asking permission, Amelia. I'm an adult. And I'm the woman you're supposed to marry." "I know that." "Do you?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice as though calmness could make cruelty sound logical. "Wedding planning has been stressful. We've both felt it. I could use a break too. Planning our wedding is stressful. So your solution is to disappear with your ex-girlfriend." This isn't about punishing you. I didn't say it was. You're making it sound dirty. You're making it sound dishonest. His eyes hardened. For the first time that evening, the nervousness disappeared. What remained was irritation that I wasn't cooperating with the version of reality he had prepared. I need space, he said. The words hurt more than Serena's name. Space from what? He hesitated. From us. I remained still, although something inside me had begun to splinter. What does that mean? It means I need time to think about whether getting married is really what I want. There it was. Not friendship. Not compassion. Not support for a recently divorced woman living across the ocean. Derek was questioning our marriage, and he had chosen to search for clarity in hotel rooms and candlelit European streets with the woman he used to love. So, let me understand this, I said quietly. You're uncertain about marrying me, and instead of speaking to me, you're traveling through Europe with Serena for 2 weeks. I need perspective. And you expect me to wait here? He rubbed both hands over his face. Just stay calm about this, okay? Stay chill. I'll be back before you know it, and then we can talk about everything. Stay chill. He said it, as if I were overreacting to a delayed dinner reservation. I looked at the man across from me. The man who had proposed on a beach in Maui. The man who had cried when I said yes. The man who had helped me choose songs for our first dance while secretly reconnecting with his ex. Then, unexpectedly, my anger disappeared. In its place came a cold, almost peaceful clarity. All right, I said. Derek blinked. All right, whatever you want. Relief spread across his face so quickly that it told me everything his words had not. Thank you. He reached across the table and touched my hand. I knew you'd understand. I withdrew my fingers before he could notice they were trembling. He went into the bedroom to begin packing. I stayed at the table staring at the empty chair across from me. That was the moment our engagement ended. Derek simply didn't know it yet. The next morning, he left early for work. He claimed he had meetings all day and would probably return late. I suspected he wanted to avoid another conversation before the trip. The second the front door closed, I opened my laptop. My first call was to our wedding venue. There's been a change in circumstances, I told the coordinator. I need to cancel. She explained that the $5,000 deposit was non-refundable. Cancel it anyway. Next came the caterer. $2,000 gone. Then the florist photographer band and rental company. By noon I had dismantled 8 months of planning and lost nearly $12,000. I didn't regret a cent. My next call was to my friend Jacqueline Brooks, whom everyone called Jackie. She was an attorney and had never trusted Derek as completely as I had. When I finished explaining, she was silent for several seconds. You need documentation, she finally said. We aren't married yet. That doesn't mean he can't lie about what happened. Hire a private investigator. Find out exactly what this trip is. She gave me a number. The investigator's name was Rick Dawson. His voice was blunt and emotionless. He explained that he worked with professionals in several European cities and could arrange surveillance throughout the trip. It won't be cheap, he warned. How much? Approximately $5,000 for 2 weeks depending on travel. Do it. I'll need his flight information and hotel reservations. Derek and I had always shared passwords for emergencies. I opened his email, expecting to find a flight confirmation. I found much more. There were reservations for London, Paris, and Barcelona. 1 room in each city. 1 bed in London. 1 bed in Paris. 1 bed in Barcelona. Every reservation listed both names. Derek Collins, Serena Blake. For a long time I stared at the screen while the final pieces fell into place. He had not planned a spontaneous act of kindness for an old friend. He had planned a honeymoon before our wedding. Just not with me. I forwarded everything to Rick. Then I drove to the bank and transferred exactly half of our $40,000 joint savings into a new account under my name. I left Derek the other half. I wasn't going to steal from him. I was only going to stop him from stealing any more of my future. When Derek came home that night, I was sitting on the couch with a basketball game playing on television. He dropped his bag near the door. Hey, he said cautiously. How was your day? Productive. He sat beside me. I'm leaving around noon tomorrow. I'll take an Uber to the airport. Sounds good. He studied my face. You're really okay with this? You already said you're going either way. His shoulders relaxed. Then he leaned over and kissed my cheek. Thank you for being so understanding, he whispered. This is why I love you. I kept my eyes on the television, because by then, I knew something Derek did not. While he was packing for Europe, I was preparing for the day he came home. Saturday afternoon arrived with bright sunlight pouring through the apartment windows, the kind of beautiful weather that made betrayal feel almost obscene. Derek came out of the bedroom, pulling a dark blue suitcase behind him. He had dressed carefully for the flight black jeans, a fitted gray sweater, the expensive watch I had given him on our 3rd anniversary. You sure you don't want to drive me? He asked. I'm sure. He nodded, but I could tell he was disappointed. Maybe he had imagined a dramatic airport goodbye. Maybe he wanted me to hold him tightly, whisper that I trusted him, and prove that I would still be waiting when he returned. Instead, I stood beside the kitchen counter and watched him check his pockets. Phone, wallet, passport. He looked around the apartment as though trying to remember whether he had forgotten anything. He had. He had forgotten that actions leave consequences behind. Derek approached me and wrapped his arms around my waist. For one terrible second, instinct almost took over. 4 years of loving him urged me to lean into the embrace. I kept my arms at my sides. I'll text when I land, he said. Okay. Don't worry about me. I won't. He pulled back and studied my face. There was a question in his expression, but he didn't ask it. Perhaps he sensed something had shifted. Perhaps he simply believed my quietness was sadness that would eventually make me more grateful when he returned. I love you, he said. I looked directly into his eyes. Have a safe flight. His smile weakened. A car horn sounded outside. Derek picked up his suitcase, opened the door, and paused. I'll be back before you know it. Then he left. I watched from the window as he loaded his luggage into the Uber. He climbed into the back seat without looking up at our apartment. The car disappeared around the corner. I waited 5 minutes. Then I began packing his life into boxes. I started in the bedroom. His shirts came off the hangers one by one. The blue button-down he wore on our 1st anniversary. The sweater he had borrowed from me during a winter trip to Vermont and never returned. The suit we had chosen together for our engagement photographs. I folded everything carefully. Not because I still loved him. Because I wanted there to be no accusation that I had damaged anything. Shoes went into separate boxes. Toiletries into plastic containers. His books, electronics, framed photographs, gym equipment, and kitchen gadgets were labeled and recorded in an inventory on my laptop. I removed every photograph of us from the walls. In one picture, Derek stood behind me on the beach in Maui, his chin resting on my shoulder. The engagement ring sparkled on my hand while the sunset burned orange behind us. We looked impossibly happy. I stared at the photograph longer than I should have. Then I placed it face down in a box marked personal items. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. The apartment looked unfamiliar. Empty shelves, barry walls, open spaces where Derek's belongings had been. I stood in the center of the living room and realized how much of my identity had become attached to the idea of us. Not to him, to us. The wedding, the shared apartment, the future children we had discussed, the house with the large kitchen he promised we would buy someday. I had not merely lost a fiancé. I had lost a future that had never truly existed. Sunday morning, Derek texted at 7:14. Landed safely. London is incredible already. Miss you. I read it twice. He had been in the country for less than an hour. How could he already know London was incredible? Unless someone had been waiting for him. I didn't respond. At 10:30 Monday morning, Rick called. I have someone on them, he said. I moved into my office and closed the door, although there was no one else in the apartment. What happened? Serena met him at Heathrow yesterday. They hugged for a long time. She kissed him before they reached the parking garage. My grip tightened around the phone. On the cheek. No. I closed my eyes. Rick continued, in the same professional tone. They went directly to the hotel. One room, as expected. They came down for breakfast this morning. There was physical affection throughout the meal. Hand-holding, kissing, her head on his shoulder. Do you have photographs? Yes. Send them. The email arrived while Rick was still speaking. I opened the first attachment. Derek and Serena sat across from each other in a hotel restaurant. Their fingers were intertwined on the table. In the second photograph, she leaned across the table and kissed him. The third showed them walking outside. Derek's arm was wrapped around her waist. Serena was smiling up at him. The fourth stopped me. They were standing on a street corner, beneath a red awning. Derek had both hands around her face as he kissed her. He held her the same way he used to hold me. For several seconds I couldn't breathe. I had imagined anger. I had expected rage so powerful I might throw the laptop against the wall. Instead, I felt cold. The photographs did not reveal anything I hadn't already understood. They simply removed the last space where doubt could hide. Amelia Rick said, "I'm here. Do you want us to continue?" "Yes." "You're 13. I want everything. Every city, every hotel, every time they touch each other." He paused. Understood. After the call ended, I printed the photographs and placed them in a folder. I labeled it Earrope. Tuesday afternoon, Derek called through WhatsApp. I watched his name flash across my screen for several seconds before answering. "Hey," he said brightly. "How are you?" "Fine." "You sound tired." "I've been busy." Behind him, I heard traffic and a woman laughing. Serena's laugh. Derek lowered his voice. "London is amazing. Serena has been showing me everywhere. We went to the British Museum today, and tomorrow we're taking a train to Bath." "That sounds nice." "It really is. I think this trip is helping me clear my head." I looked at the photograph of him kissing Serena, which was lying on my desk. "Are you getting the clarity you wanted?" There was a short silence. "I think so." "What have you realized?" "That we both need to stop putting so much pressure on everything." You know what I mean." "No, Derek. I don't." He exhaled. "I don't want to argue from another country." "Then don't." His voice softened. "You're being really cool about all of this. I appreciate it." "No problem. I'll call again soon. Love you." I said nothing. "Amelia?" "Yes." "Did you hear me?" "I heard you." Another pause. "All right. Talk later." He ended the call without asking why I hadn't said it back. Wednesday evening, Rick sent another group of photographs. Derek and Serena walking beside the Roman baths, her head resting against his shoulder, his hand inside the back pocket of her jeans. Another photograph showed them sitting on a stone wall, Serena's legs stretched across his lap while he kissed her neck. I closed the email. That night I slept on Derek's side of the bed. Not because I missed him, because for the first time in months, I wanted to take up as much space as I needed. On Thursday morning, Rick confirmed they had boarded a train to Paris. By evening, another email arrived. The first photograph showed them standing beneath the Eiffel Tower. Serena was wearing a red coat, and Derek had his arm around her. They looked like a couple in an engagement advertisement. The next photograph showed them kissing. Not a hurried kiss, not a confused mistake. A long, deliberate kiss in the middle of a public square. Derek knew he was engaged. He knew I was sitting at home. He knew our wedding invitations had already been ordered. And he kissed her as though none of those things existed. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Paris is beautiful," Derek wrote. "You would love it here." I stared at the message until the words blurred. Then I typed, "I'm sure I would." He responded immediately with a heart. Friday brought more photographs. Derek and Serena sharing breakfast at a cafe, walking hand in hand through the Louvre, sitting beside the Seine at sunset. In one image, Serena rested her head against his chest while he stared across the river. He looked peaceful. That photograph hurt more than the kissing. It suggested intimacy, comfort. The quiet familiarity Derek had claimed existed only between him and me. My best friend Michelle Grant came over Friday night, carrying Thai food and a bottle of wine. She stopped inside the doorway when she saw the half-empty apartment. "You actually packed everything." "Every sock?" She set the bags on the counter. "Have you heard from him?" "Every day. And he's having a wonderful time." I opened the folder and spread several photographs across the table. Michelle stared at them in silence. Oh my God. He told me they were going as friends. She's practically sitting in his lap. There are worse ones. Michelle lifted the Eiffel Tower photograph. He isn't even trying to hide it. Why would he? She looked at me. Because he's engaged. No. Because he thinks I'm sitting here waiting for him. He thinks I believed him. Michelle lowered the photograph carefully. What are you going to do when he comes home? I'm going to pick him up from the airport. Her eyebrows rose. You're serious? Yes. Amelia, I know you. You look calm right now, but calm doesn't mean you're okay. I'm not okay. It was the first time I had admitted it aloud. My voice cracked on the final word. Michelle reached across the table and held my hand. For several minutes, I let myself feel everything I had been avoiding. The humiliation, the anger, the unbearable knowledge that while I had been canceling our wedding, Derek had been walking through Europe with another woman. I keep wondering what was real, I whispered. Michelle's grip tightened. You were real. What you gave him was real. His dishonesty doesn't change that. A tear slipped down my cheek. I wiped it away immediately. I don't want him to see me fall apart. He doesn't deserve to see any part of you. I looked at the photographs again. He deserves to see what's waiting for him. Saturday evening, Rick called with his final update. Derek and Serena had returned to London for their flight home. They spent their last night in the same hotel where the trip had begun. Rick's investigator recorded them kissing outside the entrance before going inside. The following morning, they left separately. Serena took a taxi toward the city. Derek headed to Heathrow. Do you need anything else? Rick asked. No. Send me the complete file. It'll be ready tonight. Thank you. After the call, I drove to the storage facility, where I had rented a small unit. Derek's boxes filled nearly the entire space. I paid 3 months in advance and left a spare key with the manager inside a sealed envelope bearing Derek's name. Then I returned to the apartment and met the locksmith. By 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, every lock had been changed. On Saturday night, I sat alone at my kitchen table and completed the last part of my plan. First, I drafted an email to the 150 people invited to our wedding. Due to unforeseen circumstances, the wedding of Amelia Hart and Derek Collins has been canceled. Thank you for your understanding and respect for our privacy. I scheduled it to send Sunday at 5 in the afternoon. Next, I created a private photo album. 30 images. Only the clearest ones. Derek and Serena kissing, holding hands, entering hotels together, looking at each other with the tenderness he had promised belonged to me. I titled the album Derek's European Adventure. Access was limited to his parents, his sister, several close friends, and Serena. That message was also scheduled for 5. I did not include strangers. I did not post the photographs publicly. I wanted the people Derek might lie to afterward to know exactly what had happened. Finally, I placed the storage unit key inside a small white envelope. On the front, I wrote his name. Then I turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. Derek's flight was scheduled to land at 4 the next afternoon. He believed he was returning to his fiancé. He had no idea that by 5 o'clock there would be no wedding, no home, and no lie left for him to hide behind. Sunday afternoon arrived, with an almost unbearable sense of calm. At 3 o'clock, I pulled into the airport parking garage and parked near the International Arrivals Terminal. The envelope containing Derek's storage unit key rested on the passenger seat beside me. Inside my purse sat another folder. Rick's photographs. I probably wouldn't need them. One picture would be enough. Outside the terminal, families crowded against the railings, children held homemade welcome signs, and couples embraced as travelers rolled their luggage toward them. Watching them hurt more than I expected. Every smiling reunion reminded me that mine had already ended before Derek's plane ever landed. At 4:16 p.m., the arrival board changed to arrived. A minute later, passengers began streaming through the automatic doors. Business travelers, families, students carrying oversized backpacks. Then I saw him. Derek walked through the crowd, pulling his suitcase behind him, sunglasses resting on top of his head. His skin carried a light tan from 2 weeks in the European sun. He looked rested, happy, completely unaware that his life had already changed. The second he spotted me, he smiled. There was no guilt in that smile. No hesitation. Only confidence. He waved and hurried toward me. There you are. He leaned in for a hug. I stepped backward. His arms stopped awkwardly in midair. Amelia. Let's get to the car. His smile faded. Is everything okay? Just come with me. Neither of us spoke during the walk through the parking garage. I unlocked the car remotely. He loaded his suitcase into the trunk while repeatedly glancing toward me, clearly trying to read my expression. Inside the vehicle, silence settled between us. I started the engine but didn't shift into drive. Instead, I unlocked my phone. Without saying a word, I handed it to him. The screen displayed a single photograph. Derek kissing Serena beneath the Eiffel Tower. The color drained from his face. His lips parted slightly. Where did you get this? I hired a private investigator. He stared at me. I have over 200 photographs, I continued quietly. Hours of video. Every city. Every hotel. Every time you held her hand. Every kiss. His breathing became shallow. Amelia. I know about the hotel reservations. He blinked. I know there was only one room in London. Silence. One room in Paris. He lowered his eyes. And one room in Barcelona. He swallowed hard. I can't explain. I almost smiled. Not because anything was funny. Because every unfaithful person seemed to memorize exactly the same sentence. I don't want an explanation. His voice cracked. It wasn't what. Please don't insult me by lying again. I reached into my purse and removed the white envelope. The wedding is canceled. He stared at it without taking it. I canceled the venue. Nothing. The caterer. His breathing quickened. The florist. Still nothing. The photographer. His hands began shaking. I lost $12,000 in deposits. Finally he whispered, You canceled everything. Yes. You should have talked to me first. That sentence almost made me laugh. I should have talked to you first. I mean, before making a decision that big. I looked directly into his eyes. You booked an international vacation with your ex-girlfriend before talking to me. His mouth closed. I continued. The apartment locks have been changed. His head jerked upward. What? Everything you own has been packed. No. It's in a storage facility. I placed the envelope in his lap. Here's your key. He stared at it as though it might disappear. You can't do that. I already did. I live there. No, Derek. I shook my head slowly. You lived there. The lease is entirely in my name. He opened his mouth, closed it again. He knew I was right. When we'd moved into the apartment 3 years earlier, the landlord had required a single leaseholder because Derek's previous apartment had ended with unpaid rent after his roommate disappeared. I'd signed. He never had. You don't have the right. I spoke with my attorney. That wasn't entirely true. Jackie hadn't represented me formally, but she had explained exactly where I stood legally. As of today, you no longer have permission to enter my apartment. He leaned back against the seat, looking as though someone had punched him. Then another realization struck him. My clothes. Storage unit. My tools. Storage unit. My laptop. Storage unit. My grandmother's watch. Wrapped separately. He looked at me in disbelief. You packed everything. I had a lot of time while you were sightseeing with Serena. He covered his face with both hands. For nearly 30 seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he whispered, I'm sorry. I waited. Nothing else came. Not an explanation. Not accountability. Only the same empty apology people offered after getting caught. I'm not finished, I said. His head lifted. In about 30 minutes, every guest invited to our wedding will receive an email informing them the ceremony has been canceled. His eyes widened. What? And your parents, your sister Serena, and your closest friends will receive a private photo album. His voice became almost desperate. What photo album? The one documenting your European vacation. His face turned completely white. No. 30 photographs. You wouldn't. It's already scheduled. He grabbed my wrist. Please. I calmly removed his hand. You can't send those. I can. It'll destroy me. You should have thought about that before kissing another woman in front of half of Europe. Tears filled his eyes. It was a mistake. No. It just happened. No. I was confused. No. Each denial came more quietly than the last. It happened every day for 2 weeks, Derek. His shoulders collapsed. I love you. I looked at him for several seconds. Then I answered honestly. I think you loved how certain you were that I'd always forgive you. A tear rolled down his cheek. I chose wrong. There it was. Not I betrayed you. Not I lied. Not I hurt you. Only regret that his choice hadn't produced the ending he wanted. I opened the passenger door from the driver's controls. Get out. He didn't move. Please, get out. We can fix this. No, I'll never talk to Serena again. You already talked enough. I'll go to counseling. You should. I'll do anything. I nodded once. You can start by respecting my decision. He stared at me, perhaps searching for some trace of the woman who had kissed him goodbye 2 weeks earlier. She wasn't there anymore. Slowly, he climbed out of the car. I stepped outside, opened the trunk, and set his suitcase on the sidewalk. He stood beside it without touching the handle. Cars passed behind us. Travelers hurried by without realizing someone's engagement had just ended forever. He looked so lost that for one dangerous second pity tried to creep into my heart. Then I remembered the photographs, the hotel room, the lies, the words, just stay chill. My sympathy disappeared. I hope she was worth it, I said quietly. He looked down. I don't know anymore. I got back into the driver's seat. As I drove away, I glanced once in the rearview mirror. Derek remained exactly where I had left him. One hand rested on the suitcase. The other held the small white envelope containing the key to a storage unit that now represented everything he still owned. 22 minutes later, my phone vibrated. 5:00 p.m. The scheduled email had been sent. The photo album had been shared. By the time I reached home, the first calls had already started. I ignored them all. An hour later, curiosity finally won. I turned my phone back on. There were over 80 notifications, missed calls, text message, voicemails. Some were furious, others sounded heartbroken. The first message came from Derek's mother. How could you humiliate him like this? Everyone makes mistakes. This was cruel. The second came from his younger sister Hannah. Amelia, I just saw the photos. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I can't believe he did this. Then came a message from one of Derek's closest friends. I tried defending him until I opened the album. I don't know what to say. Another. He lied to all of us. Another. You didn't deserve this. There were also people who believed Derek would somehow explain everything. One family friend wrote, relationships are complicated. Don't throw away 4 years over one mistake. One mistake. I stared at those words. 2 weeks. 3 countries. 1 hotel room in every city. Hundreds of lies. People loved reducing betrayal to a single moment because it made forgiveness easier to recommend. But betrayal was never one decision. It was hundreds of tiny decisions. Delete a message. Tell another lie. Book another hotel. Hold another hand. Kiss another person. Every single choice had pointed in the same direction. Toward Serena. Away from me. Monday morning, I left my apartment for work just before 8. Derek was waiting outside the building. His clothes were wrinkled. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. He looked as though he hadn't slept since landing. When he saw me, he stood immediately. Please. I kept walking. Amelia. I stopped several feet away. You have 3 minutes. His eyes filled again. I've been calling all night. I know. You blocked me. I did. I deserve that. I folded my arms. So why are you here? He hesitated. Then the truth finally surfaced. Serena doesn't want a relationship. I stared at him. What? Yesterday. After everything happened, I called her. He laughed bitterly. She said she never wanted anything serious. I said nothing. It was just supposed to be a vacation. The words echoed in the morning air. Just a vacation. Just 2 weeks. Just 1 room. Just 1 affair. I thought, he whispered. I thought maybe she'd want us to try long distance. And she said no. I looked at him for a long moment. So let me understand. He lowered his head. You came here because your backup plan failed. No. Then why didn't you come back before she rejected you? Silence. Derek. I made the biggest mistake of my life. No. My voice remained steady. You made dozens of them. He reached toward me. I still love you. I stepped backward. I believe you love not being alone. He looked as though I'd slapped him. My 3 minutes are over. I walked toward my car. Behind me, his voice cracked. I'm not giving up on us. I never turned around. Because some endings deserve to stay endings. 6 weeks passed. People often imagine that betrayal ends the moment someone walks away. It doesn't. The relationship ends in a single day. The aftermath keeps unfolding for weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years. The first week after Derek returned from Europe, my phone barely stopped ringing. Friends wanted updates. Relatives wanted explanations. Co-workers carefully pretended not to know anything, while obviously knowing everything. I answered almost no one. There was nothing left to explain. The photographs spoke for themselves. Derek, however, wasn't ready to let the story end. Within days, I started hearing rumors. Apparently, he had been telling people that I was controlling, that I monitored his every move, that he had felt emotionally trapped for years. According to his version of events, Europe had simply helped him realize he wasn't happy. For a brief moment, I wondered whether people would believe him. Then Hannah called. I thought you should know what's happening. What happened? My parents confronted him. About the pictures. About everything. She sighed heavily. He tried telling them you exaggerated. And my mom believed him. She paused, until Dad opened every single photo. I closed my eyes. There wasn't much left to argue after that. According to Hannah, Derek's father barely spoke. He simply scrolled through photograph after photograph. London, Bath, Paris, Barcelona. The same woman, the same embraces, the same smiles. Finally, he placed the phone on the table. You didn't accidentally betray Amelia. Those were apparently the only words he said. Then he walked out of the room. His disappointment hurt Derek more than any shouting ever could. His mother reacted differently. At first, she defended him. He was confused. He made a mistake. He deserves another chance. But over the following days, Rick's photographs continued to circulate privately among close relatives. Each image chipped away at another excuse. Eventually, even she stopped defending him. Meanwhile, Derek moved back into his parents' house. According to Hannah, he rarely left his old bedroom. The confident man who had boarded a plane convinced he could keep 2 women in his life had disappeared. In his place sat someone who spent hours staring at his phone, hoping Serena might finally answer. She never did. Apparently, Derek called her dozens of times during the first week. He sent long messages apologizing. Not to me, to Serena. He asked whether they could make long-distance work, whether she had changed her mind, whether what they shared in Europe had meant anything. Eventually, Serena blocked his number, blocked his email, blocked every social media account she could find. Just like that, the woman he had risked everything for vanished from his life. It was strange. For months I had imagined Serena as some extraordinary person, someone irresistible, someone capable of stealing the man I loved. Instead, she turned out to be exactly what she had always intended to be, a vacation, nothing more. About 3 weeks after Derek came home, I moved into a different apartment, smaller, quieter, on the opposite side of town. Some people questioned why I would leave when the old apartment legally belonged to me. The answer was simple. Every room contained memories. The kitchen where Derek had proposed making homemade pizza every Friday. The balcony where we drank coffee on Sunday mornings. The bedroom where we planned our honeymoon. Walls remember things. Sometimes moving forward means leaving perfectly good walls behind. My new apartment overlooked a small neighborhood park. Every morning, elderly couples walked dogs beneath rows of maple trees. Children laughed on the swings after school. Life continued. Slowly. Mine did too. Michelle visited the weekend after I moved. She carried takeout containers and immediately began criticizing my furniture arrangement. The couch should face the window. I like it here. No, trust me. She spent nearly an hour reorganizing my living room while pretending not to notice I was laughing. It was the first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. When we finally sat down to eat, she looked at me carefully. "You know, what? My husband has been trying to set you up." I nearly choked on my drink. "Already? Hear me out." I raised an eyebrow. "Her name is Daniel." I laughed. "Danielle." Michelle rolled her eyes. "Very funny." She pointed her chopsticks at me. "His name is Daniel Reeves. A veterinarian. 39. Never married. And before you ask, no, he isn't secretly taking European vacations with his ex." I smiled despite myself. "I'm not ready. I didn't say tomorrow." She shrugged. "I'm just saying someone nice exists." For another week, I thought about it. Not because I desperately wanted another relationship, quite the opposite. I had grown comfortable eating dinner alone, comfortable sleeping diagonally across the bed, comfortable making decisions without wondering how someone else might feel. Peace was becoming addictive. Eventually, curiosity won. Daniel and I agreed to meet for coffee on a Saturday afternoon. He arrived 5 minutes early. No dramatic entrance. No rehearsed charm. Just a tall man wearing jeans, carrying a paperback novel beneath one arm. "You must be Amelia." "I am. It's nice to finally meet you." For the next 2 hours, we talked about everything except relationships. His work? My career. Travel. Books. DOS. Music. When the conversation eventually drifted toward my broken engagement, I gave him the abbreviated version. My fiancé went to Europe with his ex. Daniel blinked. "That's certainly one way to end an engagement." I laughed. He didn't pry. He didn't ask for gossip. He didn't criticize Derek. Instead, he simply said, "It sounds like you discovered the truth before the wedding instead of after it." I looked at him. "I suppose I did. I'm sorry it happened." He smiled gently. "But I'm glad you're free." There was something refreshing about his response. No dramatic speeches. No promises. Just quiet honesty. As we left the coffee shop, he hesitated. "I'd like to see you again." I realized I wanted that too. "How about dinner next weekend?" I'd like that. It wasn't love. Not even close. But for the first time since Derek left for Europe, the future no longer looked empty. A few days later, I received an unexpected email from Derek's mother. The subject line simply read, "I'm sorry." I stared at it for nearly 10 minutes before opening it. "Amelia, I owe you an apology. When everything first happened, I reacted as a mother instead of as an honest person. I wanted to believe my son because accepting the truth was painful. Over the last several weeks, I've seen more of the investigator's photographs and learned things Derek never told us. There is no excuse for what he did. You welcomed him into your life with loyalty, and he repaid you with deception. You didn't deserve any of it. I also judged you unfairly for ending the engagement the way you did. Now I understand why you felt you had no other choice. I'm deeply disappointed in my son. I hope someday you'll forgive me for my own words." I don't expect a reply. I simply wanted you to know that I finally see the truth. I read the email twice. Then I wrote a short response. "Thank you. I appreciate your honesty. I wish you and your family peace." Nothing more needed to be said. Later that week, Rick sent his final report. Nearly 100 pages. Timestamps, photographs, hotel records, travel timelines, witness observations. It was astonishingly thorough. He ended the report with one sentence: "Evidence collection complete." I saved the file in an encrypted folder. Hopefully, I'd never need to open it again. One Saturday afternoon, while unpacking another moving box, I found a small velvet ring box hidden beneath old paperwork. For a second, I forgot what it was. Then, I opened it. My engagement ring. $8,000. Platinum. Diamond. Every promise Derek had once made seemed reflected inside that stone. I closed the box. The following morning, I visited a jeweler. He examined the ring for several minutes. "I can offer $4,500. Less than I had paid. Less than it had once represented." I accepted immediately. Some investments aren't measured by profit. Sometimes, the return is simply closing a chapter. I used the money to buy new furniture for my apartment. A dining table, bookshelves, a reading chair beside the window. Objects chosen entirely because I liked them, not because someone else did. Over the following month, people occasionally asked the same question. Do you regret how you handled everything? My answer never changed. No. Some believed I should have confronted Derek before he boarded the plane. Others insisted I should have forgiven him after he came home. Neither option would have changed who he was. If I had confronted him beforehand, one of two things would have happened. Either he would have lied, or he would have hidden the affair more carefully. Instead, he revealed exactly who he chose to become when he believed I would never walk away. The truth, painful as it was, became a gift. Because certainty heals faster than suspicion. A few days ago, my older sister called. I heard the whole story from Hannah. I figured you eventually would. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that stayed with me. You know why this hurts so much? Why? Because you were mourning someone who stopped existing long before Europe. I frowned. What do you mean? The Derek you loved would never have booked that ticket. Silence settled between us. The man who got on that plane wasn't the man you fell in love with. After we hung up, I thought about those words for a long time. Maybe she was right. Or maybe people simply change so gradually that we don't notice until one decision exposes everything. Looking back now, I can see the warning signs. He became protective of his phone. He lost interest in wedding planning. Every discussion about invitations or venues ended with excuses. He mentioned Serena more frequently than before, always casually, always pretending the memories meant nothing. And every time I questioned it, he accused me of being insecure, jealous, overthinking. I wasn't imagining anything. I was simply seeing pieces of a puzzle before I knew what picture they formed. People have also asked whether I still have Rick's photographs. Yes, I do. Will I ever publish them online? Never. Humiliating someone before strangers was never my goal. The people who deserved the truth were the people directly affected by Derek's deception. His family, his closest friends, the guests who deserved to know why a wedding suddenly disappeared. Justice and revenge aren't the same thing. Revenge tries to destroy someone forever. Justice simply refuses to protect a lie. Today when I wake up, I no longer wonder whether Derek regrets what he lost. That question doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I trust myself again. I trust the woman who walked away. I trust the woman who chose peace over pretending. And someday, whether my future includes Daniel or someone else, or even no one at all I know, it will be built on something stronger than promises. It will be built on truth.